6 Islamic. Pulling up at the rocket, gorilla off the rocket. Got the jungle in my veins, the hunt's hardwired to the brain. Spear throw aim, long range, subject is all things. Super highway packed in all lanes. Practice all manner of attack. The body shot, step back. Counter left hook, make you forget your name.
Internets, welcome back to another episode of Sultans and Sneakers. I'm your host, Mahin Islam, and today I am here with Sri Lankan-based hip-hop artist Irshad Azeez, and you go by Jibberish, right? That's your stage name, or how does that work?
So I used to do the stage name thing, and then I sort of went to my first name. But so I just say Irshad alias Jibberish.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, I know it's 6 a.m. over there, and I wanted to appreciate you coming on early morning. People are still asleep, but this is you were telling me offline. This is a new thing you're trying to do, getting up early and stuff, right? Talk to me a little bit about that. What's driving this mindset?
I don't know. I do this for a while now. So it's I actually have a song about it.
Yeah?
It's called Universal Soldier. It's on my SoundCloud. But basically, it's this idea that if you want to get good routines in, you want to get up early before you want to be on top of the day. You want to beat the day, and you beat the day by starting the day off on your own terms, right? So one of the best ways to do that is to get up early. And Fajr, we have Fajr in Islam, right?
Right.
So I was just get up early, catch the Fajr, man. All you got to do is sleep a little bit early. What's there going on at night anyway? It's all waste of time stuff. So just get up in the morning and then use that time to catch the gym, because at that time, the gym's empty most of the time as well, right? So you get a good workout in and you beat the day because you've got two really important things done.
Right.
You have a good ass breakfast, and then everybody's just waking up by the time you're done. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I feel you on that, because the thing is, most of us, if you're Muslim, if you're waking, I was telling you, most Muslims are probably you're probably 5% of the entire population actually wakes up on time for Fajr, maybe 1%. I don't know. It's really small. Most people are not waking up on time. Even I have a lot of even myself, man. I'll be honest. There's you can get on a streak and all of a sudden, a bad streak where next thing you know it's 9 a.m., 10 a.m. You're what happened to my alarm? Right?
Yeah. I was on one of those streaks recently, but I got back on it. So it's it's about this, and it's difficult. You guys live in this time zone where the sun's setting at freaking 9 or some shit, and then the morning is so it's weird. It's not easy for you guys.
Yeah. But because the night prayer Isha is after 10 p.m., dude.
Yeah, geez, man. And then you got to wake up. What time is Fajr?
Fajr comes in at around a little before 4 a.m. Oof. And then the last window. So this is what I try to do. I set my alarm for 4:50, 10 to 5, because it kicks out 5:25, right? And so what I'll do is I usually will wake up, and then it's but the thing is this is how I'm screwed right now, because my kids don't sleep till 2 or 3 in the morning. They even if I try to sleep, I'll get woken up because they'll want to eat, or they'll come into my room and be like, "Hey, I need to use the restroom." My younger 2 daughters are 3 and 18 months respectively, right? My oldest is right now with her grandparents visiting, but and then 4:50 a.m. you wake up, you're like a zombie. You just go through the I don't even know what I did.
Yeah,
I prayed.
yeah. It's like you just blah 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 blah, and then you're just like that's it, and then
Back knocked out. Yeah.
back knocks out. What's the whole point then, right? So
Right.
it's
And then it's 10 a.m. So today it was like I was meeting because yesterday, dude, I tell you, it was like the most unproductive day. So this is what happened. So, I've been on quarantine mode since like right before Ramadan, right?
okay.
And I was furloughed from my job, but I was getting paid still. I still am getting
Okay.
paid, right? So I'm
Okay.
interviewing kind of like, but I'm like, I'm gonna go back to my own company. But Friday I got an offer to go work somewhere else that I'm gonna probably take. I haven't seen the
Nice.
details yet, but I know that it's probably gonna be a sweet offer based on the company and the job and everything, right? So I'm like, yo, it's a no-brainer. So Friday I was like working on. I was like, okay, I was doing some IT stuff. I'm not in IT. I'm an engineer. Like I work in a plant,
Mhm.
but I was like trying to like diversify my skill set, like learning software and stuff. So I'm doing this. All these companies had like free training. So I remember I was taking this Oracle cloud course, and I'm like, this shit is so boring, so
It's
boring,
boring.
right?
It is boring actually.
you
Yeah.
know. But I took the free course and I registered for the exam, which is free, and it's next. I
Okay.
think it's this Wednesday or Thursday. And as soon as I got the offer, I lost all motivation, like gone. Like I was like, yo, what's the point? Like, I mean, it's only good for 18 months anyways, and it's a hard ass exam that I gotta like that, and I'm not even in IT field, right? So
Okay.
I'm like, all right, but I'm still gonna like try to push through the next few days and like at least give it an effort. But I'm not gonna like lose sleep over it, right? But I mean, yesterday I woke up and I was like Netflix. I was watching movies on Netflix and just chilling. I was like, you know what? I'm a bum, dude. I need to get up tomorrow and like run,
Yeah.
right? And I woke up to this morning. Those thunderstorms. I did go out for a run because like quarantine got me out of shape, right?
Right.
You know what I'm
It does.
saying? And the gyms here, here's the thing, dude. The gyms here, they just opened up. So I went to my gym yesterday just to check out the policies. And there's like, you got to wear a mask and all that stuff. That's what it says. You walk in, ain't nobody wearing a mask.
You can't wear a mask and work out. Are you mad? You'll
Yeah.
collapse.
Yeah, but like they're saying, I don't know, how's Corona in Sri Lanka right now? Is it like under control, you think, or what?
They lost control recently because now if you look at it worldwide, right, there's a second wave going on worldwide, right? It's
Right.
pretty much agreed upon. So there was like an outbreak. They had it under control because it's an island. They shut down tourism,
Yep.
and then it was only communal spreading. They caught whoever they caught, quarantined them, blah blah blah. They got it under control. Then what happened is the only people that weren't quarantined or on the lockdown were drug addicts.
Okay.
So these crackheads running around looking for this shit, they're catching the coronavirus and they're spreading it in their little homes and stuff. And then it sort of popped up here and there.
Right.
Apparently, it spread through army people or police people who are dealing with these dudes.
Okay.
So now it's kind of, there's been bursts of clusters popping up. It's okay. It could go either way right now. We're not out of the woods yet.
Right, but there's an advantage of being in the island, though, right? You can like really just isolate you're already isolated by default, right? And there's no international flights coming in. Nothing's coming in. Okay.
No, they stopped all that. They were trying to open it in August. They're pushing it back till like September.
Right. Yeah. So I was just like, I don't know, man, because the gyms are very like, it's the kind of environment where you're breathing heavy, and I'm like, you know what? I talked to some physicians here and they were like, yo, it's not worth it. It's just like, it's kind of risky. So now I'm trying to figure out.
You're in which state?
I'm in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah.
So America's pretty bad for the spread, man. Like it's it's pretty risky, right? If you go to the gym.
Yeah. And Chicago's in general under control. I mean, compared to like, there are some states that are just like, they're toast because they ignored everything. Chicago, it's funny because not politics, but like it's like the states that had like Democratic leadership. And I'm not a Democrat by any means, but I'm just saying like the data shows that like most of those states tended to be under control, except for California, because California people just didn't care. Like the governor tried to institute a lockdown, but people were like, "Yo, I'm going to the beach. It's the summertime. That's what we do, right?"
Florida is a Democratic state or a?
It's always been like swing state. It's been both. I think it's the governor right now is Republican. and he pretty much does not give a damn. He just like, so Florida has there are some nut jobs down there. It's kind of like the South in a way.
Yeah.
It's a weird state because you got like you got the Cubans, you got like a lot of Chicanos, like the Latino people from a Latino background. You got a lot of retirees, like your old like white Americans that go to retire, and then you got like your rednecks in some parts of Florida. So they just depend. Like Florida's an interesting mix. So in general, like, and to me there is a sharp correlation. Like if you are pro-Trump, then you are gonna be like not wearing a mask.
They're crazy. Yeah, they're all about like my rights and don't take my rights or my guns or my breathing and it's like
all that stuff, right? Yeah, but like some people are. I mean, like they say, my wife's a physician. She doesn't deal with that. She's in gynecology, but talking to people who are like in the field, dealing with the front lines, I'm like, you get it. It's no joke. It'll mess you up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it. But like that's been the hard part for me because I used to do CrossFit. Right.
Okay.
I quit in middle of 2019 because it was just like getting too damn expensive.
Is it expensive?
Yeah, man. Well, it's for my gym, I was paying 135 US a month.
What's the average gym price?
So a standard gym, you'll pay like between 30, 40 bucks a month. But the nice thing about CrossFit, no, my gym is actually cheap compared to CrossFit. Like if you go to the city of Chicago, you're paying 200 bucks a month.
Damn.
Right.
Okay.
But the reason I went for like 3 years because it's
what was your weight? What was your weight by the end of it?
Oh, I didn't go in. One of the reasons I quit is like I wasn't going enough consistently, right? So I was just like hemorrhaging money. Like, you know what I'm saying? So there would be some like it would be all like I bet if you mapped out my average like time, but when I would go early in the morning though. Like I would try to get to 6 a.m. class. Right, or a 5 a.m. class, right? And you felt it, man. You got up early, and you felt like by 6 a.m.
It's a feeling,
yeah. You already accomplished this thing, right? And so that to me is like it's like working, like getting up early is like what they call one of those domino habits, right? You get that one thing going. If you nail that, then it'll just set things up. You work out right after. You can start your work day, whatever you're doing, like on a good note. But yeah, so let me ask you, where are you in Colombo?
Yeah, I'm in Colombo.
Okay.
I grew up, born and raised in Sri Lanka, and
Okay.
I used to live in Dubai for a long time, and I recently moved back.
Yeah, I got you. What prompted the move back?
My dad got cancer, bro.
Yeah, I am familiar with that. Right.
Yeah, so I had to come back because my brother Nabil's he's got kids and all this, and my sister's in UK, so I'm the only one that's mobile.
Yeah.
So when I found out, like I had taken a vacation to Malaysia, and then my dad told me while I was in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So I canceled everything and I flew back, and then I said I have to sort of close up shop in Dubai and move here.
Right.
That's why I came here.
I got you. Yeah. No doubt. I first, so are Sri Lankans considered like Desi, or y'all like your own little crew?
So actually, Sri Lankans are Dravidians, bro. You know what Dravidians are? So Dravidian, if you look up the Dravidian Empire is everything from like South India. Okay. So Sri Lankans fit into that category of peoples. If you could say Sinhalese, the Sri Lankan language is like a Dravidian-based language. But my brother and I, were like Malaysians. We're not indigenously from here. We are sort of brought by the British or the Dutch colonialists to this country. So if you look at my mom, she's Asian-looking. And like we have a whole community on our own. We have a Creole form of Malay that we speak. That's our actual language, you know.
Oh, so it's like when you think Sri Lanka, you think Tamil, right?
Buddhist and Tamil.
Okay, so but Buddhist is like a religion, isn't it? That's like or is that ethnicity as well?
It's you could say it's an ethnicity also, man, because that's why I said it's like Dravidian, because Tamils and Sinhalese can both be classed as Dravidians. But Tamils would say that they're Hindu, and it's their language is different, and then Sinhalese people would say their Sinhalese and their language is different.
I got you. I'll tell you where I first came across Sri Lanka. So when I grew up in Ohio, and I had one classmate who was Sri Lankan, and she and I used to always compete in elementary school for like who was gonna have the top grades in school, right? She was sharp. I'll tell you.
Sri Lankans have that. Yeah, they have that Indian thing also, like about smartness and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So her, and I remember she was and every time like my teacher would announce like, because I was in school with her from like grade 1. She was in my class from grade 1 through grade 5, right? And every time, like, I remember the teacher would like say it's top score, and other students would be like, either Maheen or Yushani. That's her name. Her name was Yushani.
Yeah.
And so that was my first exposure. And then I went to school in Toronto for like a few years. Now, Sri Lankans rule deep in Toronto.
Yeah, Tamils. You must have met Tamils over there, right?
Right. So, like, some of the most notorious gangs in Toronto are Tamil.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting because in the United States, you think about most gangs are like African American, Latino. But in Toronto, it seemed like the most feared gangs at the time, this is like early 2000s, were like Sri Lankan gangs. Like you would hear about Sri Lankan kids get shot up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're refugees, right? It's like the Tamilian refugees from the war. They mostly fled to Canada. So they come with the baggage of being a refugee, and that sort of creates its own sort of issues, right? The other place you'll find a lot of Sri Lankans is Australia. But those are the Buddhists. You'll find the Sinhalese people mostly in Australia.
Okay. Yeah. So to me, that was like the first. But they were, I mean, the ones that I went to college with, they were sharp too. But they were just like a high volume of Sri Lankans, right? And but I think but we were all in Toronto, the diaspora. We were like everyone's brown. That's the first time I heard people calling those brown. Because in Ohio, it's like. Ohio's, I mean, it's a freaking like it's American. It's like American general is like white, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ohio's your typical Midwestern state. That's where I grew up. I go to Toronto and like it's a different like vibe there because it's like minorities are running that joint.
Really? Yo, because I'm thinking of migrating to Canada as well. Like, what do you think about like Toronto and all these types of places?
It's a nice city. Canada's cool, bro. Because I think the only thing, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, though, I don't know how good it is for like taxes.
Taxes, right? Yeah. I heard taxes are a freaking issue.
Yeah, they'll screw you hard, but like from the point of view of like, it's the one spot, and I may have said this on a previous podcast. Being a brown dude, you don't feel like you're an outsider.
Interesting.
And I think that's really important. I mean, it's important. You get hammered on your taxes, no doubt. There isn't a lot of violence. You don't have to work. The problem in America, man, it's like you got lunatics with like who like, and I don't want to make it a gun issue, but you got these lunatics who have firearms who will just walk into like random places and shoot everybody up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In Canada, you don't have, I mean, the amount, Toronto, and I mentioned these gangs of Toronto, like the volume of violent crime in Toronto is so minuscule. If you compare it to like a city like Chicago or a city like New York or Detroit in America, it's negligible. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think there's I would like, financially, I went there when I was in college. So I was kind of lonely, but looking back now, and I haven't been. I do want to visit, but yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's I don't know how the business climate is again, but it's a place. It should be pretty easy to. I don't. A friend of mine just went there for Bangladesh. One of my good friends. So
okay.
So I mean, I would recommend it, but like I was gonna ask you, how was it like living in Dubai? Because Toronto, that was. It was really weird because I grew up whenever I grew up, I was used to being a minority. Like in elementary school, like it was mostly black kids that I went to school with, right? And I went to high school, it was like mostly white kids, like mostly all white high school, right? And I remember the first thing that like, so when I went to Toronto, like, right, I was like, all right, man, and I wasn't really I wasn't really religious back then.
Hmm.
So I was like, all right, man, I'm going to Toronto, I'm gonna be on my own. So I can like actually like, you know, chill with girls now, right?
Yeah.
But like, and then when I get there, it's like I didn't realize that like because I grew up around all these like white people or like African Americans, like I was only into like mostly white chicks, you know, or like
Right,
American
right.
girls, right? And
Yeah.
I go to Canada and it's like I'm surrounded by like Daisies, and I'm just like, yeah. I mean, looking back, I mean, they're probably attractive, but I was like, I just wasn't feeling it. And look,
Yeah, you want the exotic fruit, you know what I mean?
well, yeah. I get there and it's like, oh, I wasn't like because my palate was like conditioned for like, you know, something else. And by the time and people always tell me like, man, Toronto's like the place for like the most you know beautiful women around. I was like, really? I mean, and maybe it was, you know, 17, 18. That's what I was thinking, but whatever. You know, but I definitely felt like I was you know, not a minority. That was cool. But like,
Yeah,
how was Dubai? How was it like living in Dubai?
Dubai is interesting, man. Like when I left Sri Lanka to go to Dubai, I was
Yep.
excited. I thought I'm gonna be where they sort of, Islam and the Arabs and all that. And I went there, and it's like a giant shopping mall, man. But I don't want to like this. We have a love-hate relationship with the country, man, because it's
Mm,
like infrastructure wise, top notch, man, top
mm,
notch. The roads are fantastic. Driving in that country is amazing, super
uh,
convenient. Everything you want there,
yep.
um, if you have the cash to spend, there's lifestyles you can't have anywhere else,
Mm,
but also like a bit because it's like this kind of playground place, like a shopping mall thing.
yeah.
um, Everybody's kind of just there temporarily, and nothing gets sort of rooted down. So
Hmm.
it's what they say, what you'll find people say is like Dubai lacks soul. Dubai lacks soul because you can't most people are transitory. They come in and they leave.
Mm,
Nothing stays. Scenes don't flourish.
mm,
History isn't made outside of what is written by their own PR
mm.
companies.
Right.
So like you won't find any legacy buildings where you can say, oh, this happened, this happened. And
Yeah.
so things live and die there. It's a desert. Nothing's supposed to be there, actually.
Mm,
They've gone and done something strange, right?
mm.
So
Right.
it has the same things that sort of make a desert empty, make the city empty, in my opinion.
Interesting. How old were you when you went there?
I turned 18 when I went there, and when
Okay.
I landed, it was the first time I met Indians and any kind of foreign. I was I had only interacted with Sri Lankans up until that point, and the one or two foreigners that come to visit Sri Lanka right on tourism. So
Mm,
this is the first time I met Indians, Pakistanis, and like Nigerians and Arabs, and it's like I'm walking into this freaking like cultural clash, man. Because
mm.
back in the day, the people in Dubai hadn't assimilated properly. It was still tribal or like
Yeah.
cliquey.
Right.
So you're walking in there as a Sri Lankan, you're a minority within minorities. You know what I mean? It's weird.
Mm. Well, now it seems like I visited in 2013. I was there for a week, and
Okay.
my wife and I, we before we had any kids, and I
Yeah.
remember like I would go back again, but she thought it was like extremely artificial. Like
See, how did your wife pick that up? Why did she pick that up? Why
I
does she
think
get that?
she just sees like because like you're basic like they were constructing the we went to the Palm, like we took the like the
Yeah, yeah,
monorail I think it was,
yeah.
and we went out there's like the Atlantis out there, and then it was just but I guess it just lacked care, like there didn't see it's just like there's building stuff like it's all like you're not, you know, when something you know like when something is being built organically or authentically
Yeah.
versus like I'm just building just a stunt. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I got money, so I'm just gonna build this shit.
Yeah, so that's basic because it's like, so it's a desert. Nothing's supposed to be there. Everything is
Mm,
imported. Their
mm,
architectural style is imported. Their
right.
brands are imported. The cuisine is imported. The people are imported. Nothing is from that place. If
Yeah.
you were to see what's actually from that place, it's purely Bedouin culture. Bedouin
Mm,
culture is hyper conservative and hyper private.
mm,
So you don't really see it. So what you're seeing is like this. Why? That's why I call it a mall, because it's like they just put in stuff in there, and you come in and walk around this gigantic mall. You know.
Right. I mean, to me, it was like they were building I think the Globe, that little island thingamajig.
Yeah.
You know, they were building that, but it's like they're just building like new amusement parks. But we went to Fujairah. We hired a cab and we went to Fujairah. So that was like you'd see like the outskirts or like the middle of the desert when you're on that, like taking that drive out, right?
Yeah.
But to me, I would go back because but to me, I'm into like to me, like, you know, I saw, like, I remember a couple years back, I had this, like, I was applying to business school. I didn't get in, but my pitch to business school was like, I wanted to like own like a sneaker company in Dubai.
You're really into sneakers, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I've had
You're a collector.
I've calmed down a little bit, but you know, I've got somewhere between 70 to 80 pairs. That I track it on a spreadsheet.
Nice.
You know. So but I see that Dubai's sneaker culture is like popping. They have stuff now. They got like I don't know, sneaker con, but there's like different conventions that I've seen sneakerheads go to. Yeah, that's the one, right? Soul DXB.
Yeah,
right.
I've performed there. Like, I know the guys. When they first started the first event, I was one of the performers, and so I've seen that event grow.
Nice.
Over years, you know.
Yes. So I first heard about you in about 2016-ish, probably, because I was listening to this podcast called The Dukan Show.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you were asking, and so I believe you used to be a host on that show back in the day.
Yeah, for the first 100 episodes, I was there.
I got you. Okay. Yeah.
Because
So
that's when my dad got sick and I had to leave, right?
Okay. And I think I found out about that show because I came across your brother in the summer of 2016, about August.
Okay.
And I remember, I think he was a guest on the show one time talking about like Ramadan and stuff. I remember y'all having a discussion about Islam and whatnot. So then I was like, and I started listening to the other stuff. A lot of the stuff is just music, but like I remember whenever like Reem was like my favorite host. Like she was like very, I was like, dude, this chick is like on point. She's just like really smooth and just like, you know, she seemed like she knew what she was talking about. So I was like, so I would listen. I don't think I'm subscribed right now just because like I think every time I would check an episode, like most of it just be music, and I'm like, well, I want to hear a conversation. I don't want to hear just music. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But like, yeah, that's that's when I first heard about this thing called like third culture. Or is that could you explain a little bit what that means?
So that idea, it's basically this idea that when you arrive at a place, you're an immigrant there and you're not from the culture, but then you assimilate. You do the work to assimilate, and then when you go back to where you're originally from, you're no longer part of that culture. So you're kind of half in, half out on both cultures, where you sort of have your root based in, and you're in this third kind of cultural space. And usually in this third cultural space, lifestyles and genres like hip hop flourish amongst the people who live in the space, because hip hop accepts all the vagabonds, right? Because hip hop it used to be an outsider's art form. It used to be the African Americans were the third culture in America. You know, they wouldn't fit in America, they wouldn't fit in Africa. They were the third culture, right? So hip hop is very conducive to third culture thinking. That's why Desis and stuff, when they go to Western countries, they adopt a hip hop posturing. You know, it even made sense to me being a kid in Sri Lanka. Again, here I had a third culture issue because I'm ethnically Indonesian or Indo-Malay. So I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm here, and at the same time, I don't really fit anywhere else. So then the hip hop sensibility made sense to me.
I got you. I got you. So, like, did you get into hip hop in Dubai, or were you already into it back in Sri Lanka as a kid?
So, like, my cousins live in England, so they used to send us music from England. So when you get stuff from England and stuff, you get the most like current music that's out there. Sri Lanka's a bit late. About like 5 years behind or whatever.
Are you for real? 5 years?
Yeah, they're still they're still playing fucking Backstreet Boys, man, on the mainstream radio. I swear to God, bro. I'm in a pastry shop. I'm like, what the?
That's like late 90s. That's not even like 5 years. That's like 20 years.
Yeah, they're crazy. They're weird. Anyway, so like, I discovered like hip hop through that, and then when I went to Dubai, It was the Napster era,
Okay.
post Napster era, and then
Hmm.
Amazon has just coming up. So Amazon allowed you to like play MP3s and sample, like listen to what the album's about, right? And I used to say I like this particular type of hip hop, and I'd search, and I discovered more hip hop through Amazon, and that opened my taste to actually appreciate what the genre is about. So actually, I did most of my discovering in Dubai.
Okay. And is hip hop like, so you think Dubai is like a spot where a lot of these third culture kids, because with the population of native Khalijis in Dubai is like small, like 10%, 15% or something.
Yeah.
So most of the kids, the youth growing up are going to be South Asian, maybe Arabs from another part of the Middle East.
Yeah, so like the Asians that come to Dubai, right?
Yeah.
They usually, so Dubai is not a melting pot. Dubai is not like America where everybody becomes ultimately American. In Dubai, people retain their cultural identity. So when you meet an Indian in Dubai, he's like an Indian from India, very close to it. If you meet an African, he's like an African from Africa. And same goes for Eastern Europeans. So there's no, what I'm saying is like, not all Desis would become like hip hop heads. They just kind of, they still listen to like their Bollywood music and all that stuff, you know. But there's like a middle ground of the youth that sort of go to college there. Hip hop is very pervasive amongst youth. So it, you know, you develop this kind of identification with at least the externalities of what hip hop is about, you know, the clothes and the slang, right?
That's interesting. So, you know, when I was there I was starting to so I'll give you a little bit my even like you mentioned like clothing, right? As reflective hip hop. I've never identified myself with any type of music per se, right? You know, but when about 2013ish, I started, so being a sneakerhead, 2013 is when I really started going in on it. That's right when I was in Dubai. And so I remember, but back then it would be like my getup would be like I'd wear like a thobe and like a fitted.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it wouldn't be a typical, like, you're not a normal white thobe. You could get, because you've seen these like thobes that have like, that are made by like UK or American designers.
Yeah.
They have like, they might be denim or something, or like the patterns. It's not your, it's not your standard Emirati or Saudi thobe.
Right.
That you would, like the sheikh would wear. It's like, it has this youthful like shape, like design to it, right? Sure. So you put that with like a fitted and some, and back then I just wear like a lot of Chucks. So I'd go to like Dubai, and I was like, that was like my look when I was there. I was there in February 13. And I do remember like a lot of people like noticed, like, you know, you could see people, you know, you can tell people are checking you out.
Yeah.
So because I didn't see that look, you know, there in Dubai.
No,
you know,
they want to dress more European because it's the fashion, the style. How do you say it? They like high fashion. The working class people, they like high fashion. They like Italian, they like European suits. This all comes from Lebanon, because the Lebanese sensibility is more attuned to the Mediterranean and Europe, right? The young kids, they're into the hip hop thing for a while, but as they become working professionals, it all becomes about like suits and like cuts and all this types of shit. You know?
But it's also like a tight t-shirt and tight jeans and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, all that is European, right? All that is like this kind of Mediterranean European kind of influence.
And then right.
For you to be like super hip hop is like you're identifying with the subculture. You'll find it a lot amongst Filipinos.
Okay. Yeah. I got
they
you.
don't
Okay.
they don't really fit. They don't really play in the playground of the higher socioeconomic sort of bracket. You know what I mean? Right. So the Filipinos are more into collecting sneakers and hip hop culture and basketball and all these things. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, I was in Bangladesh in December, and I'm Bangladeshi by nationality, right? Okay. So like, or by birth. So I was visiting in December, and I was meeting. I was having a podcast with this guy. He owns like some coffee chains, and we were talking about but he lived in America too. He went to college in America, and he was trying to tell me that like Bangladeshi fashion is more advanced than America because they all dress like European or something. And I was like, come on, bro. Like, you know, it's like fast fashion. Like, there's a lot of that. I get that, but that's not high fashion. Like I'm talking about like Louis Vuitton and like that kind of stuff. I think Dubai is more, you know, you'll see because people can, they can afford it, right? But now in America, you see this like intersection of streetwear and high fashion, like fear of God, you know. that kind of these kind of things that where you're paying $500 for some freaking sweatpants. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's no longer the streetwear has lost its streetwear idea. I mean, we got to look somewhere. I think you can't look to hip hop anymore for all these things. You have to look somewhere else. Hip hop is no longer that culture that it doesn't hold its claim anymore. It's something else now.
Right. I feel like now as I'm much older, I'm 38. I feel like the way I want to dress is the way I'm going to dress. I try not to like, and it's really hard to, but like, this is why I understand the Japanese. What the Japanese do is the Japanese seem to be like, you can wear whatever the hell you want and no one cares. Right? Because like Japan, in the United States at least, Japan is seen as like the epicenter of fashion as far as like, and when you like, and I've researched it, it seems like people in Japan, because they just don't care. Like you could wear a kimono and some Jordans and a fitted hat, and no one, it could look really, you might think it looks really weird, but the Japanese are willing to experiment, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm like trying to say, like, hey, what do I really like? And for me, a lot of what I like is the stuff, to me, it's always like the stuff that I grew up with, meaning the stuff that was around when I was a kid, but I couldn't afford because my dad wouldn't buy it for me because I was in like, he was in grad school or something, right? So that's what I'm trying to get that now, but it's hard because you got so much fake shit on the aftermarket. Some of these companies are trying to retro it, but then it's just like not the same. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're trying to go on eBay to try to find like something, because there's stuff that like people have forgotten about. But I mean, like if you're trying to be authentic and stuff, but for sure. As far as music goes, like hip hop's been you kind of got into hip hop then as your identity, I would say. Any specific influences in hip hop?
So like obviously Tupac is a starting point for a lot of people, right? But then that was not the selling, but the selling point was a Tribe Called Quest. You know Tribe Called Quest?
Of course, yeah.
So because because the Q-Tip and Ali Shaheed Muhammad are Muslim. And it was the first time I heard in any type of sort of Western music that anybody dropped a reference to something like Islam in it. Right. And I was like, what is this? How is this possible? And when they finesse it with the words, it sounds really cool. So it made me endeared to them. And when I went to Dubai, one of the first things I started looking for through Amazon was this sort of more Tribe Called Quest music. And through them, I discovered all the other related artists, which is like The Roots and Mos Def and Kweli and all that type of thing. And then it's expanded from there.
So my perception of people who are really into hip hop is that you're really like attracted to the lyrics, right? The lyrical, the poet, you probably are into poetry. That's just my perception. 'Cause to me, to this day, I like music for the point of view of the actual beat or the backgrounds. You know what I'm saying? Like I could care less about what the song, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does it sound good? Does it wake me up? How does it make me feel? But
right.
You get, so I think I that's for that reason I never claim myself to be because I'll be like you might think it's funny about like I do enjoy like old school like West Coast rap like old school being like Snoop Dogg's first album from like 93, right?
Sure.
But I never was a big, I like Biggie more than Tupac. I mean, but again, some of the Biggie songs that I really dig are like the more mainstream songs like Juicy. Like Juicy's a song that I like when I need to get motivated. I will like put that on, right?
Right.
But then I would listen to like other stuff. I was like, into we mentioned Backstreet. I used to love Backstreet Boys in high school.
Back in the day,
I never like you. But the thing is, you couldn't like tell anybody that. My close friends knew and they would clown me for it. I was like, well, whatever. But like, you ain't going to school saying you like Backstreet Boys. I'm like, man, this dude's, you're gay, right? You can't be a dude like Backstreet Boys or you're gay, right? But like, I remember these girls I grew up in my community, the Bangladeshi girls, they all like NSYNC, and I was always like shitting on them. I was like, yo, Backstreet Boys is better than NSYNC. All right. Yeah. Although long term they probably made out because they had Justin, right? Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
I don't think
He carried that band, man.
yeah. I mean,
Carried that whole band.
I feel like Backstreet Boys was more balanced. But anyways, like there was a phase I listened to country music for a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
I listened to
Good
country.
songwriting. There's good songwriting in country music.
So to me it was, but in America, like, and I'm guessing Dubai may be similar, but like in America, as a kid, like the music you listened to was like your identity. It meant what cliques you could be in, right? Because growing up in elementary school, it didn't matter. Elementary school, everyone's cool. There's no, because it's like once you hit puberty, then it's like, all right, man, it's time to like draw some battle lines.
Yeah.
So to me, and the rap I knew in elementary school was like Vanilla Ice,
Okay.
like MC Hammer. Like
because of the Ninja Turtles movie.
well, before that, Vanilla. I mean, hey, to this day, I think Ice Baby is still like when that song comes on, I'm like,
hey man, you know why the sample where that's from is a David Bowie song. It's already a hit, right? That David Bowie song.
Oh really? I think
I think it's not David Bowie. It's some other 80s artist, but that sample is it's a melody that works. That's why this track works,
Yeah. So to me that was rap, but this is like what, late 80s, early 90s, crisscross.
Yeah.
So it was like that was the kind of, it was like the more pop rap, because my dad my dad was very strict about like me listening to music, not from the point of view as like music is haram or like impermissible in Islam, because he would listen to his Desi stuff, right? It was more like he thought that was like the black folks' music to be like politically.
There's like apparently now this stuff is coming out, like there's this sort of anti-black thing that sort of sits somewhere in especially older Asian cultures, right? It's crazy how this stuff's coming to light.
Right. I talk about it pretty openly on my show, but like, so my dad would say basically like, because he would see how Chris Cross would dress like backwards, right? Remember that? And, and then MC Hammer had those huge baggy jeans. Yeah. And he'd walk around with no shirt on, them gold chains. Yeah. So I remember I would be watching MC Hammer at the Grammy Awards or something, and he'd be like, change the channel. Like, because he would be like,
they don't like the flamboyance. They think it's a bad influence.
It's a bad influence. You're like, and I think, but it's interesting how like the stuff he let me watch. So Simpsons came out back then.
Okay.
So anybody that watched Simpsons know that's like,
that's not a kid's show. Yeah,
it's not a kid's show at all. Yeah. But I had like the but it was a cartoon, because back then there was no idea, there was no such thing as a cartoon being not for kids.
Right.
So you found out later these dudes were like anarchists and atheists, and they were like trying to push their agenda. And you think about how like they treat Homer, right? The kids, like defying parental authority.
Yeah. It's you want to talk about a bad influence? Yeah.
Right. So my dad was cool with me watching Simpsons. I was watching Simpsons like every day, man. They had some, because you would have your weekly Simpsons on, and then you have your reruns going on throughout the week, even on your regular television after school, man. We watch Simpsons every day. Yeah. And then he bought me the Simpsons T-shirts, which are actually worth a lot of money now if you have the original ones.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Cool. But like I asked my mom like a couple like months ago, I was like, hey, do you have any of my old Simpsons shirts by any chance? She's like, nah, we got rid of that like years ago. I was like, damn.
Oh,
like great. Yeah. So I could have flipped them for like $80-$90.
Man, like 90s memorabilia is a thing now. No, can you believe it, man?
Not right. So I remember like my pops, he let me watch Simpsons, but he was like MC Hammer, no anything rap. And so I had a friend, he used to like, he got into hip hop in early 90s. He was in a Dr. Dre and Snoop, and he would dress like, and I like that style. The way they used to dress back in the early 90s is still very, very appealing to me, right? Like Tupac in his like, his dungarees, his like the overalls, the Dickies overalls.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like he would come to these like dawats, these Bengali functions dressed like that, and my dad would just like have a heart attack, So now it's like, now I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Like right now I'm growing my hair out. My brother's got hair down to his shoulder. I'm like, I told my parents, like, I'm growing my hair out. I'm 30, like, yo, listen, I'm a dad now. I got a job. Like, I do what I want, right? Now they're just like, all right, fine, whatever. right?
Yeah.
I feel like they're just happy I got a stable family, and I'm still Muslim, considered like the
Yeah.
times we
Yeah.
live in, right?
Considering the times. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, I say that to say that in sixth grade, a kid would ask me like, "Hey, Maheen, what kind of music you listen to?" I was like, "I listen to rap," and this guy would be a metalhead. He'd be like Metallica or Megadeth, and so just because I liked rap, and I didn't really like rap, I was like, "Well, I'm not really into music, but that's what the cool kids listen to, right?"
Yeah. So
And
you have to say
then
rap.
I would say that, and then he'd be like, "Yo, rap is gay." And so then I realized that there was like these like groups being formed around like if you were a hip hop kid, you listen to it. Now, granted, this would be a white
No, it's
kid.
cutting out.
Sorry. All right, let me. Yeah, I'll let you catch up on the lag.
It's cutting out.
Are you back?
I am back. You were saying this. This guy asked you what music you listen to. You said
Yeah,
rap, and then I
right.
think he sort of got pissed off.
Yes. So, but yeah, he was. It was interesting because I was a small brown kid. I was, I'm a pretty short. Bangladeshis were not like big people in general.
Yeah.
So it's like this white kid. He was bigger than me, and he was like, "Oh, that's rap sucks." Now he would never tell a black kid that, because that black kid would like beat his ass. But I'm like, "Oh, I'm somebody," But it taught me back then that we used to have these beefs. So you mentioned earlier the South Asian kids in Dubai, like maybe like there's a lot of hip hop influence, but in America, it depends. Like, so South Asian Indian kids or Desi kids used to either be in hip hop or like alternative, like Pearl Jam and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Nirvana,
Yeah.
those were the groups. And I remember we would go to we would have these like massive like parties, right? Because like every weekend there were like our parents would have these like all the Bangladeshis would get together and like have a party at someone's house, and you see people from all over, and so you had your hip hop kids and then your kids who were like into like metal or like alternative, and there would be like beef from the get just because of what you listen to,
Yeah.
which like looking back now is so stupid, but that's like I did like to us like if you think about it, music becomes like a religion for people, right?
Well, so here's the thing. Have you if you see the generation now, it doesn't happen. It's something of the time, of the 90s time. It's something about us. The kids now, the Gen Z and the later millennials, they don't see music as underground or anything, because everything's accessible through the internet. There is no such thing as really underground music. That's an archaic term now. And they don't believe in it's like genres, like strictly. They just think there's different types of music. So their view of the world is different. They're not so tribal either. I mean, I think maybe they also divide into tribes, but it's more for them. I guess it's the identity politics. That's the tribes.
Yeah.
For us, it wasn't that. It's the subculture or countercultures that we belong to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, thinking about like back then, it was more because I think as minorities, as like if you're an Asian kid or like a brown kid, you try to gravitate towards like the whites, like a white culture or a black culture, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you see looking back. Yeah, because back then it was like, for example, LGBTQ, right? Like that was not normalized. It was like not normal to be like down with that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's completely different now. It's like it's been like 30 years.
Yeah.
Like nobody ever, I don't think I graduated high school over 21 years ago.
Okay.
And I don't remember a single kid that was openly gay.
Yeah.
Even though there may have been looking back, but like, nah, you just that's something you didn't go there, right? And it was like this. I remember one time, man, I was in the bathroom and I was like coming out of the bathroom and some kid was like, "Hey, man, you looking at my ass?" And I was like, "Nah." Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's this idea, like, it's almost like you're on the lookout. Or I remember you would hear like some girl would say something about like, "Oh, I heard so and so's into girls," and she thinks I'm fine. I was like, I need to beat her ass. I'm gonna knock her teeth out because if
Yeah,
she thinks of me like that, right? I mean,
yeah.
now it's like I mean, I'm curious to know what I don't know when the shift happened, right? But you're right. It's now people are, the kids are just into different things, I guess. You know
Well,
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
it's look. So if you think about like the kids you grew up with, the generation, the grades, maybe a few grades below you, right? So all
Yeah.
of us have now grown up and become mature and like adults, right?
Hmm.
The kids that were treated badly by that mentality at that time have gone up to influence culture now, or get to become gatekeepers
Hmm.
of what is acceptable and what is not. So
Hmm.
they're remembering all the things that they found as injustices in the world, and they're trying to correct them through their lifestyle now. So the
Mm.
change was actually, we were the creators of the change and we didn't know it. You know what I mean? By the way we treated the people in our schools. They've all grown up now and they're sort of their uh, taking it out on the world, I guess, not in a bad way, but they're trying to correct the mistakes. So
Right.
it's just been this gradual process, man, that's happened in the course of like our lifetime.
So you left Dubai about 4 years ago, you said?
2016, yeah.
How do you find identity politics in like Dubai like play out? Is like, or is it you just like see what happens in the West and then kind of like take it from that?
So I mean, there's this thing. Obviously, the West has a huge influence on the world, whether they like it or not,
Mm.
because they control the media. And if we consume anything in English, we're consuming stuff that they've made. So anything they decide that's right or wrong, and what the story is, we're consuming their stories, and ultimately we're getting our minds changed. That has its effect in Dubai, right? But Arab culture is super conservative. There is a lot of like homosexuality that goes on in Arab culture, but it's sort of under the tables, especially because it's a segregated society. So amongst the men who stay amongst men, there will be like the dude that sort of gives it up for so and so, and the same thing for women. You know what I mean? It's just
Mm.
very hush hush.
Mm.
Um, but like on a sort of day to day basis, when I was there, nobody talked about it openly. It was something you kept secret because you could get into trouble for it. That's obviously now changed, man. The things really in the last, since the 2000s till now, in the last 20 years, it's really flipped, and it's only exponentially it's changed faster and faster, right? Like it's no longer just like lesbianism and homosexual like gays. It's now into like transsexualism, and then so on and so forth. Like the steps it's jumped have been very fast, you know.
The proper term is actually transgender. I actually found that out a couple
Right.
weeks ago because I did I interviewed a transgender hafiz.
Yo, really? Where's?
Yeah,
Oh, I'll check that out, man.
it's
What's
not
where?
it's not it's not out yet. I'm gonna drop it in August at some point just because I've got to prepare the people because
No,
I'm
that's
gonna get canceled like
nah. I think
bad.
that's. I think
Yeah,
this is it's time we sort of. I was telling my friend the other day, like just yesterday. It's like, so
yeah,
now it's 2020, man, and
right,
we cannot, as Muslims, right? We
yeah,
cannot say the same things that we've always said about these other sort of lifestyles. We can't just
right,
keep calling them degenerates, because when you sit and ask them to tell us about their lives,
yeah,
they seem to come from an honest place, and they seem to genuinely feel for one another and stuff. So to
yeah,
sort of sit and class that as like degenerate behavior,
yeah,
it's it's not helpful, because we want harmony, right? We don't want disharmony. So we have to
right,
know how to articulate ourselves, and we have to know how to accept them, because in our belief system, if they want water, if they want food, we have to provide that for them, right?
right.
So it doesn't really matter what the hell type of lifestyle you're living, obligation to be nice to you.
Yeah, there's this intellectual laziness that we sometimes fall into as well, right? And that's something when I was researching that show, I was like finding out about like for example, this idea that being gay in and of itself isn't a problem in Islam because you haven't done anything. It's
Right.
just it's the same because in Islam we're not punished for feelings or like inclinations. We're
Right.
punished for sins or acts. Like you know what I'm saying? Like
Okay.
and this is something we talked about on that show was like within Christian, like we've imported like Christian dogma in some ways and transposed it up as Muslim into the Islamic like paradigm, because Christians, for them, the whole concept of Christianity is like we are such sinful creatures, starting with original sin, and then we've accumulated all these other sins, and it's so great that we needed a blood sacrifice from Jesus Christ to atone for these sins, right? So a Christian would, like a fundamentalist Christian would say that even same-sex attraction is is sinful. Like even if you haven't done anything, like being gay is sinful. And I think what happens is that like we've kind of somehow like absorbed that idea into Islam. But being gay is a postmodern, like this idea of sexual identity is like a postmodern construct, right? The question is, if you're a dude, you either had sex with another dude, or you didn't, right? Not about, or you had some kind of physical intimacy with that other guy or not, because there are you may have done something, but you didn't go all the way, and that could still be problematic. But if you just have attraction to the guys, if you're a guy and you haven't done nothing, then there's nothing actually like that's not in the fact that the community just automatically is triggered by that, even that idea. And I mentioned this on the other podcast I'm a part of, the Mad Mamluks, right? Yeah. That like I feel like there's a stigma if you compare, like, because people always assume like sex outside of marriage is like one of the worst things you can do in Islam, right? Muslims like we don't do that, right? Yeah. But there's the stigma, I think, of same-sex attraction is actually worse than the stigma of actually having illegal sexual intercourse.
Zina, no, it's called
zina, right? I'm just saying, like, yeah, like having same-sex attraction with doing nothing is stigmatized worse than just like fornication. They're actually doing, you know what I'm saying? So that to me has to be addressed
because it's classed as degeneracy.
Now,
the thing is, like, we need to have a higher level of discussion about this, and it's difficult because we've got so much shit to do in a day.
Right? Yeah.
But, like, the thing is, now is the 2020 from now. The time is to read and sort of expand our mind, right? Because we want to get to this cool position where we can sort of tell people, look, we're Muslim for this reason, and we have a lifestyle like this, and it doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't mean I'm trying to sort of defame you or anything. You know what I mean? It's just that we have this kind of heterosexual path that we follow.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying like Islam is a heterosexual lifestyle. It's a clan building, family building kind of. It's rooted in clan building, family building, and that requires like male-female relationships and all these types of things. You know,
right?
So how to work that out in a nice way and reason it out and sort of say it so that you can, because if you refine your understanding, it's something you can pass on to your child, and your child who's unsophisticated in his thinking can take that and articulate it and not hurt somebody's feelings or be seen as like a hateful child. You feel me? So it's up to us to refine our way of articulating our position, and we can't keep the same narrative before as calling it like, oh, this is like degenerate behavior and that's not the way it's gonna fly, man. Otherwise we're gonna always be like in conflict, man, and we can't add more conflict to an already conflicted planet. You know what I mean? We need to decrease conflict. You know what I mean?
And I think a lot of it is like ego driven. It's like you got to stunt. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes you feel like, rather than engage, like it was a challenging episode to do, because like imagine you're sitting across from somebody who memorized the Quran, which has its honor, right?
Right.
Like this person has like done that. This person was born a male and now is like identifying as a female, and so therefore is taking the hormones and has the makeup and the earrings and the jewelry and dressing like a female, like, and this isn't a Skype interview. This is in front of me. Like I did this like in person, right? Wow, so okay. But you're like trying to have a discussion and understanding like this person struggled with issues, right? But then at the same time you have to stay balanced and like make sure you're articulating what I believe to be the Islamic position as well, which this person doesn't agree with right now, but like it's about how can you maintain that decorum without being a prick.
Yeah, without being a prick, man. Because like, why should I offend you? Because God knows how much headache this person has gone through. They genuinely feel confused about their identity. Right, it's like a whole scene, and why should I just like dismiss that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I want to put you on the spot real quick since we're talking about this. You probably know that your brother is like one of the most polarizing figures on most Muslim social media, right?
Yeah.
You know, but it's part of it is like, but I've always
Is-
like, you know,
yeah, I don't know. He's a
by the way, you cut off a second. Maybe there's a reason for that.
uh, hold
Are you back?
No. Just give it a minute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. I was like, I wasn't sure if that's something you wanted, if you wanted to go there or not, but because he told me when I was talking to you, he's like, you know, my brother and I, we disagree on a lot of stuff, so you can talk to him about all this kind of
Hold on.
stuff, right?
Sure. No, what were you saying? So like he's
Yeah.
the
So like when I was talking to your brother, obviously linked us up to do this podcast,
yeah.
and so I messaged him the other day, and I was like, this is kind of the framework of the conversation. He was like, yeah, you could ask him about like, he's like, he and I, we always disagree on stuff, so it's all good, right? So he's but
Yeah.
the interesting thing, he's a very polarizing guy on social media, in Muslim social media circles, right?
Okay.
But at the same time, I feel like I've always gotten on with him because I think that there is a, like, social media has a certain type of, it's like a game. You know what I mean?
It's a game. Yeah.
You
It's a
know,
game.
it's a veneer, and you got to get past, like, it's like you're a certain way on social media. It's kind of like a door. It's like a facade.
Yeah.
It can tell you a little bit about a person, but not really. You got to really get to know the person. And so,
Yeah.
you know, so what I try to do is, okay, you might have a facade, and unfortunately, it just means that, like, what I think his presence on social media kind of exposes, like, this kind of like intellectual laziness that people have, like, you know, because people will tweet something that's like seems to be like very provocative, right? But then you're like, but I try to be like, but is there like, yeah, the way it's said, it might be very crude, but it's like, but is there truth to it? And then you try to engage that person via DM.
Yeah.
You know, because real conversations aren't really happening in the Twitter subthreads. What happens is that, like, the stuff on Twitter, or like Twitter subthreads, are just people are just there to show off. I think. No one's actually there to try to really understand anybody.
Yeah.
You know, you'll make a couple points here and there, and then what I do is I try to take it offline if possible. I either hit them on a DM, or if I know the person, I'll hit them up on WhatsApp and be like, hey, let's talk about this a little bit more, right?
Right.
You know, so I feel like that's
kind of that's like going the extra length. Most people aren't willing to go, right? So you're actually taking the time to move it to a longer format type of thing. But yeah, you're right. Everybody sort of your timeline makes more sense once you realize everybody's tweeting to get a reaction and not to actually explain fully what they think.
Right, exactly.
It's like, I'm gonna hyper condense what I actually think into something that's gonna get me a trigger, because that's the work I'm doing when I'm on Twitter, right?
Exactly.
So that's when your timeline starts making sense, and you can sort of feel free to not be triggered by it. You know what I mean?
Right, because so I think that's where, but people just don't. I don't know. It's the kind of culture we live in that people aren't willing to, like, invest that time to actually talk to anybody.
Yeah, that's
I think it's just easier to just be pissed off and, like, hate somebody. You know, I was talking. Have you heard of this show called Rami?
No. What?
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a show. It's on Hulu. Do you guys get Hulu in Sri Lanka?
We probably can. I don't watch much Netflix or Hulu or anything.
Okay, like, so Rami is a show. I'll summarize it real quick. It's a show. There's an Egyptian comedian in America named Rami Youssef. Okay, he you know, he does stand up, and he's got his own TV series.
Okay,
and he just completed second season, and it's like this. It's an insight in, like, the life of an average Egyptian American kid who's trying to be religious too, who's trying to be Muslim.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So, but he's got like a lot of baggage, right?
Okay.
And so it's being dismissed by a lot of people as, like, this is like just sinful behavior, and, you know, why are you know, we shouldn't be promoting this. This promotes Islam in a negative light, etc., etc. And I was like, I've enjoyed both seasons. I'm looking. There's a season 3 gonna come out. I think I'm looking forward to it. But like, I get a lot of flack from social media. Like, dudes, I took a position about a few weeks ago on there was some drama on Twitter, right? That I got sucked into, or maybe I instigated it, however you want to say it. But one of my detractors, his refutation of me was Maheen promotes the filthy show Rami. that was his rebuttal. Like,
well, you see the language that we use, right, in the Muslim community, filthy. We use things to, everything is filthy or unclean or impure. So we have these sort of very black and white way of looking at the world, man. That's why you'll see people call Islam a Saturnian cult. Saturnian, all Abrahamic traditions are like of a Saturnian nature.
What does that mean?
Saturn is obviously Greek mythology, right? But like Greek mythology is like a way of sort of condensing archetypes into themes that you can understand. Saturn is all the things that cause structure to exist in this world, and all the things that cause structures to break. So Abrahamic traditions are about setting up structure and order, like patriarchal structures, etc. Not that it's patriarchal, but like, just structures, and then it's like judgment of how to break down structures. So we have this way of like saying that's right, that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong, and just like making without allowing for subtlety. And this is in the mainstream way of like being a Muslim, right? If you sit with like refined scholars, they'll tell you, no, there's grades to it, and etc. etc. So we do this to each other, it's our way of calling each other out, that's filthy and that's impure and all this type of thing. It's a bit silly, actually.
Well, it's interesting because I think there are scholars, and they can't come out publicly like say it because they'll just get canceled, that are okay. They're cool with Rami. They're like, it's art, or it's like, it's an outlet for a kid, right? Because
I mean, look,
go ahead.
I don't know, I haven't watched the show, right? But like we have to allow room for art, man. We don't have enough art coming out of our communities, that, like, it's actually stupid, because like the whole world is playing in a sort of collective game, and we're not playing in the game because we're afraid of the fitna and all these types of things, but that's causing us to be underrepresented and misunderstood. You feel me? Like people like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Mo Salah, even to a degree this Majid Hassan, I think his name is, or something, I can't remember, he's like a comedian in America.
Hassan Minhaj,
sorry.
So, what about someone like Dave Chappelle? But he doesn't really like flaunt his Muslimness.
He doesn't, but that's a manner. The thing is, I believe we need to participate in public spaces, and that involves all making of cultural artifacts and things. Because when we do that, we allow ourselves to be represented, and we allow people to have conversations with us and see us for more than just this idea that we're a Muslim thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That does more for us than this is going to sound messed up to say, but that does more for us PR wise than any imam can do, than any sheikh can do. You feel me?
Exactly. Right.
We have to break this we have to not be afraid to go into these zones. Like, we're so afraid of catching hell. You know what I mean? Because we're so judgmental. We need to chill a bit, because like we have to also remember that our God is a merciful God, right? And if we're trying to take the example of our God can be merciful to us, so we should be merciful to ourselves also, right?
There's always this fear, like, there's this idea that like, what if you're committing sins? What if this leads you to hell? It's like fear mongering away. By the way, excuse me for 1 second. I'm going to turn my lights on because it's like getting dark here.
Sure.
By the way, are you good for another 15 minutes?
Yeah, bro, let's go, man.
Okay, just because I gotta pray I gotta do 15 to pray Maghrib and then jump on another call, but that's cool. But I think that's a good topic to kind of finish off on. Yeah, so like I think that there's this like fear mongering way, that it takes a level of maturity in the religion like engaging with the religion to like not give two shits.
Yeah, so you have to be so the thing is, I make this joke about myself. I call myself a disco Muslim. Like the
Mm.
fact that I'll get up for Fajr but not
Yeah.
pray the other prayers and maybe catch Isha, that's a disco Muslim thing to do. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like I like to deviate, man. And they'd say you're a deviant and use that as a derogatory term, right, within the community. But like,
Mhm.
I don't mind deviating, because if Sirat al-Mustaqim is a straight path, you can walk that straight path, and you'll do perfectly fine by not deviating from the path. We should all understand that. But what I like to do is I like to go off the beaten path and come back on, because going off of it gets you to discover things and sort of be curious and enjoy life a little bit. And coming back on is really, really hard, but you learn the lessons by trying to get back on the path. You feel me?
Mhm.
So it's like a long way of going around the road, but I feel like if you want to get a lot of spiritual understanding, man, to really reflect on what role you're playing in life, you have to get off the path and get on the path again.
Now, so are you saying you purposefully just like, because like getting up for Fajr is the hardest prayer to make out of 5, right? So are you saying you purposefully neglect the other ones, like to get, you get what I'm saying? Is
No,
that
so
what, like?
I don't beat myself up. I don't beat myself up about neglecting the other ones. I've had Islamic teachers talk about you have to pray. If you don't pray, you're going to go to hell. And I don't let that get in my head. Like I said, look, let me first start catching Fajr. Okay,
Yeah.
once I catch Fajr consistently, let me try and catch Isha. So I'm going to try and catch Isha now, and I'm going to include that in my lifestyle. After that, let me try and maybe catch Jummah. So then I catch Jummah. Now I'm catching 3 things. As I get older and get older, I'm going to hopefully include more prayers, and that's something to aspire to. And I don't think I'm going to be punished for that approach, man, because I'm approaching it from a very sincere, balanced place. I know what works for me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I know people who catch all 5 prayers and they're assholes, man.
Right.
What's the big deal? You know what I mean?
So for me, like, do you, when you were in Dubai, like, did being in Dubai, like, how did that affect your practice of Islam?
It's so first when I arrived in Dubai, I was more of not even, I don't know the word, not agnostic, but I just didn't have any refined understanding of religion, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Apathetic.
yeah, apathetic, right? And then
Yeah.
the guy who taught me to like rap and stuff, I remember telling him, I don't know, I'm kind of, I don't care about Islam so much. He was like, astaghfirullah, man, how can you be like that and shit? And he's
Right.
the most harami person in the fucking world, right? And this guy is like, he gave me a lecture about it, and it's like, okay, let me reconsider this stuff. And then I opened myself up to the idea. And the cool thing about being in a Muslim country is like, if you want to practice it, there's really nice ways to practice it, and they make it nice for you to practice it. Like some of the mosques in Dubai are fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Like when you do Ramadan in Dubai, it can be really, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so through that, like the average Joe, even if he's like a sort of deviant in the religion, you can
Right.
have a religious discussion with them because they have the Muslim upbringing, you know. So you get like, I got really exposed to Islamic ideas there, and I saw like different ways of being a Muslim. So I saw really refined ways of being Muslim. I saw really like twisted ways of being Muslim, and I saw in between. There's a lot of middle ground that's not even covered, man. All you see is it's either ISIS or it's like a sheikh, and everybody in between is a loser, right? You know what I mean? That's how they frame it, right? The imams think we're all losers. ISIS think we're all losers. You know what I mean? It's weird, right? But the actual fact is like, you wanna go through life. The middle way is the most interesting way, man, because it's hard to be in harmony, man. It's hard to be in balance. It's hard to be in harmony with yourself and other people while doing all this complex, like refinement of the soul type stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking the other day, like I started practicing Islam seriously in my early 20s. So maybe 16, some 17 years now, right? But when I first started, I went in hardcore. I was like the Salafi orientation, if you're
That's how
familiar with
everybody
that.
starts, bro. They start
Yeah.
hardcore. Even Nabil started hardcore. I remember.
Right. And so but then you get into like, but you haven't like, the previous 20 years of your life has impact. Like you just like stuff doesn't like, yeah, you can go practice, but like there's still demons that you got to deal with.
Yeah, you haven't dealt with that shit, and you'll get burnout. The harder you go at the beginning, the quicker you'll burn out, man.
Right. And one thing is, I remember I was thinking about this the other day. It was like, 'cause I was like, man, I wish I studied. I wanted to go study overseas and go to Medina and do all that stuff in my early 20s. I never did. And I was like, and I was listening to a talk the other day on YouTube. And I was like, the dude was talking about sincerity in the path of knowledge, of learning Islam. And I was like, yo, because my ego's out of control. Like today, like my ego's out of control. Like that's probably why. Like, dude, if I went to Medina and became a sheikh, I'd be one of these guys you'd be reading about who like got like tied up in all these like secret marriages or something.
Yeah.
I would be like taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, but to me, it's always like a struggle. You know, people now are like, for example, on this show, like, you know, we've had some profanity, etc. That I'm not gonna edit out because I'm like, that's still being authentic. I mean, people can say like, oh, this, because I even think that like profanity is something that like how it's communicated is like a lot of it's custom, right? It's a custom of the language. And I've spoken to some teachers about this, and they're like, yeah, it makes sense in that way, but it's just a thing that like you have a certain like the thing is there's a certain like ideal or some certain avatar everyone is like envisioning. This is the perfect guy, right? And then
the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is our perfection, and we're aiming towards perfection. People don't realize that aiming towards perfection has its consequences also, man. It's not that easy.
Yeah. So to me, it's like I'm a little shook, to be honest, about how you're approaching the 5 prayers, because like for me, it's like when I miss or I'm delayed or something because I'm caught up in something, right? I'm like, yeah, it's like you. But there are times, to be honest, I'm just like, damn, I just feel like I just feel lazy as hell right now, and I'd rather watch a movie. You know what I mean?
But see, the purpose of arriving at this conflict is the most interesting part about it. It's like the battle of now what? Now I don't want to pray, but I have to pray. How am I going to address this situation? The mental juggling that you have to do to solve it is the refinement of character. You get me? Because it's like, if you say, no, I'm not going to pray, I'm just going to watch Netflix, then you're going to deal with this thing called the guilt. How do you now watch Netflix without guilt? Because the accumulation of guilt is bad. You want to accumulate less guilt because you want to die without guilt, less guilt, as little guilt as possible. We do put on a lot of guilt on ourselves, man. Especially in a Saturnian religion like an Abrahamic one like Islam. We put a lot of guilt on ourselves. Other people are trying to put guilt on us. We're putting guilt on each other. You want to decrease the amount of guilt you take. So you have to have a real sort of centered way of looking at yourself. You have to say, okay, if I'm not going to pray now, I have to forgive myself right now for not praying. If I can't forgive myself now, there's no fucking point. I'm not going to watch Netflix guilty. What's the fucking point then? You feel me? So you have to make these sort of negotiations with yourself.
But isn't it more about asking God for forgiveness? Like even in that moment.
Yeah,
right.
That's the thing. You sort of, because
like in that moment, you're like, Allah, I'm weak, and like the game is like to be honest, like most, like I mean, how many times we're watching like in America, it's like the NBA. You're watching Jordan, like you watch the NBA finals back in the day, man. Back before DVR.
Yeah,
it's Maghrib time. And you got 36. You're like, I mean, yo, it's like I'm just gonna play after the game, right?
Yeah. So that's the trick. Like, I mean, that conversation with the internal conversation with the creator is the process now. And you wanna people's relationship with the creator is like one of a teacher trying to be disciplined, trying to impart discipline on me. You know, like. What if you were to change that relationship? So different people teach the religion in different ways. Some people teach the religion where God is like this like guy who slaps you for any reason. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, how do you, is that real also? Why is that the valid way? Why can't it be another way? Because if it was a loving God, you would have a different conversation. You'd be like, okay, today I'm gonna like fail the prayer. But I'm going to investigate how I can make sure that doesn't happen again. I'm going to create a sort of solution around that. Or if I can't, I'm going to sort of say, yes, I'm going to pray late and I'm going to set that time where I pray, but this is the time I pray. You know what I mean? Like the thing is to keep the promise to yourself. When you start keeping promises to yourself, you develop the the skill of keeping promises to yourself.
That's an interesting take. So it's almost like, though, because again, this conversation is making me very uncomfortable, and I'll tell you why. Because like I would think that like again, my framework is, yeah, it's like how much do I empower? Because like this whole idea in Islam, we have the nafs, right? The lower soul specifically is like if you let that lower soul get too much control, it like you could open the floodgates.
I'll tell you what though, by the practice of keeping the promise to yourself, even if it's not the promise that you thought,
Yeah,
you develop the willpower to beat the nafs over time. Because you know what the benchmark is. That's the cool thing about this religion also. We have the benchmark, the highest benchmark. We know what is the ultimate right.
Right.
That's why we can safely say also that it's a heterosexual religion as opposed to a homosexual one, right? We know what the benchmark is. So ultimately, long story short, as I sort of deviate, ultimately I have to do the work to come back to Sirat al-Mustaqim. So my long-term goal as I reach 40, as I reach 50 is to increase the number of pairs, to pray on time, to learn more Quran. This is my benchmark and I have to strive towards it. If I'm not striving towards it, I'm not really coming back onto Sirat al-Mustaqim, right? And people have this worry, they impart more worry on you. They're like, you could die tomorrow. You could die tomorrow. How are you going to go to hell now? Chill the fuck out, man. As long as like my aspiration is to try and keep working towards it, why should I be worried about when I'm going to die, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think that even this guilt you're talking about, I've never heard it framed that way, which is really interesting. And I think there's a value in understanding that, because a lot of times when people stop practicing altogether, it's because there's so much guilt that's just built up, and you're just
time.
Like, fuck it.
Dude's gone off the religion telling me about like how they no longer kind of align with the religion anymore purely because they're carrying so much guilt and they feel they're not worthy. That's a silly way to be off religion, right? Dudes don't feel worthy anymore because of all the judgment that religion imposes on them. They're just like, I can't aspire to this thing. I'm going to give up. That's a silly reason, man. That's not how you approach spirituality, man. It's because we've put all these Saturnian rules and restrictions on each other, you know?
What do you think as far, like, how do you approach, like, the idea of spirituality? Because I remember in the old interview, the Dukan show, when you guys talked, I think the episode from a few years back, I remember you mentioned you enjoyed like the works of Hamza Yusuf, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then he's someone that I have always like. Well, though, Grant, when I was Salafi, I used to hate his guts. I used to tell my dad, don't listen to him either, right? But then I heard him, but then I went to go see him in person. He came to Ohio in 2007, and I was like, this dude is like agrees. Like I remember, I was just with, and I was like, I remember I was on point too, because I was like, he has a way of articulating things, right? But like the guy has a certain state about him that's like very like magnetic, but also like intoxicating, that you can like absorb a lot of things, right? Have you ever thought about like being like because you ever notice when you're around certain people, like they make you love God? Certain people, they might be religious, they have a veneer, but you're like, these guys are just assholes, and they make you like, man, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that's true. This I've seen guys, man. The nur is showing from their face, man. I believe that there is something about the constant work, the constant grind of working on your heart, the constant sort of keeping promises to yourself. Ultimately, it shows on your face, man. I remember one Ramadan, bro. I was just smashing it this Ramadan, bro. I was doing even like Sufi meditations, like muraqabah and stuff. I was doing like durud.
Right.
And I remember my mom commented once during that Ramadan, is like, your face is brighter. That was my mom saying that, you know, and your mom, the mom knows you best, right? So these things, man, they have a sort of benefit. And then people like, so what, why should I care about being that spiritual? It's because like, if you refine your thing, you can be a beacon by just being a beacon. You don't even have to say a damn thing. You can just walk through a room and people will sort of take whatever you have to give, right? And you might have something to give, even if it's one line. And that could be the only line that they sort of cling to get through to their next evolution as well, right?
So looking back, do you like think about, because like right now, I would say that like there's been, I've had states, because it's like life's a journey with like ups. It's like a stock, living up the Dow S&P, right? It's like going up. Well, hopefully you're looking for overall incline. Like
overall,
dips, you know. But when you think about like that Ramadan, and Ramadan always, people like always attribute like Ramadan's always going to be a strong point. oh, this
Yeah.
past Ramadan sucked for me because like I was so
Oh, it
lazy.
sucked. Yeah, it sucked. Nobody
Um,
had a control.
but to me, it was like I remember I did itikaf like a couple years back, 10 days. No, I didn't have my phone on me.
Oh, nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think that's where it's like you realize your potential, but then like you think back, like to me, I also have regret. I'm like, damn, but like that was 2 years ago, and now where am I at now? That's kind of how I feel. It's, again, it goes back to this guilt thing. Like I did Hajj 5 years ago, but like I ain't like what have I done? Like like how am I when you assess things? So
Mm.
how do you channel the guilt into this whole keeping a promise? I want you to like as we finish the conversation, I want you to like really hone in on this keeping the promise to yourself. I've never heard that. Like explain that to me one more time because I really want people. I want to understand it, to be honest. Like because that seems to be that might be a great takeaway for folks here.
I mean, just like the thing is, you break your own will. No, have you noticed? Like when you commit these things called sins,
Yeah.
the reason why it feels bad is because you have the belief that this is a violation against yourself, and deep down it's so ingrained that you can't really even change it. You just kind of know it. And when you violate yourself, you might dismiss the idea and carry on with your day, but the thing is seeded now that you've just violated yourself, right? You committed the sin. So it's either you change the belief or you sort of make some sort of compromise. It's all negotiations, man. It's all contracts. It's all spiritual contracts with yourself type thing, right? So when you decide to do something and deliver on a promise, like I'm going to pray Fajr today, you wanna not fail that promise, but you wanna also negotiate the terms of that promise. If you can't make it at 4:40, say I'm gonna catch it just before it ends at 5:30, but I'm gonna catch that. And you can feel comfortable and comforted in yourself that I gave myself like breathing room. So if I miss it off this point, it's on me. A lot of times we don't like that authority sort of dictates to us how we should live our life. We want to live life on our own terms. It's very important to us. That's why the negotiation part is important. That's why it's important to sort of give yourself breathing room and say, okay, look, I might not catch it then, but I'll catch it here, and I'm going to be okay with that because at least I caught it and I did it the right way and I kept the promise. The promise is the most important thing. That's a muscle you build, man. That's like a willpower muscle. When you get really good at keeping your promise, man, everything is possible. Like a lot of things are possible. Like you can break addictions because of that. You can break bad habits because of that. You can break bad behaviors because of that. Learning how to keep that promise is a strong ass thing. But one cool way to like help you keep the promise is actually before you like set about to do something, even if it's a haram thing, this is going to sound very fucked up, but even if it's a haram thing, you make a small dua about it. I'm about to do this thing. It's wrong, but this is how I'm negotiating with it. This is why I'm going to do it. And it's a weird reason. I'm going to solve it, but let me just do this now and get it off my thing. And I'm going to make it really quick. You know what I mean? I'll get it done and I'm going to be done. And then it's like you create this you even ritualize the sinning act sort of thing. Yeah. And it sort of compartmentalize it so that you can deal with it in its own way and you can sort of break it apart. Even by sort of setting terms and conditions around the act, you're keeping the promise to yourself. You're still maintaining some sort of control. The worst way is to be mindlessly committing sinful acts. Then you're just a mindless goon.
That's what we call it, like ghafla, like heedlessness, right?
Okay, dope. Yeah. That's nice. Ghafla. Yeah, this is the worst way to be. If you're going to break the rule, know why you're breaking the rule and be completely empowered in that process.
That's interesting. So like I want to like the very last scene of Rami season 2. Okay, I'll tell you what happens, right? Spoiler alert, but you'll still if you watch it, I would still check it out. So he's engaged to his sister, right? He's engaged. So he takes on the spiritual path, the Sufi path, okay? And he has a sheikh, and in season 2, and the sheikh has a daughter who midway through, like they decide to get married. The season, okay? So he's about to get married, but he originally in season 1 it ends because he ends up sleeping with his cousin in Egypt. Okay, he goes to Egypt to like find himself, to like find his roots, get more religious. Because he's trying to get better, but his basic where he falls short is like he commits zina a lot, and he watches a lot of porn, right? So it's like the girl problem, right?
Yeah.
So he goes to Egypt to get away. to like meet his grandfather and like go to but he ends up sleeping with his cousin, right, in Egypt, and then his cousin gets engaged or whatever. He couldn't commit because he's still like in that I don't want to he's like, oh, we're just figuring it out, It's like typical like dude talk in your 20s, and so what happens is his cousin comes to his wedding, right, and he was like, so he ends up sleeping with his cousin again the night before his nikah. Right?
Oh, wow. Okay, this guy's got
So, but he's like, and he's like telling this to his wife the day after their like first night together. And he's just like, yeah, well, like, I thought it was, fine, because he was trying to figure, because like, he's like back into it. He's like, he's like into his cousin still, right? And he's into this girl he's about to marry. But then his friend was like, yo, bro, don't worry about it, man. Islam allows 4 wives. So you could probably just get like 2. And so he's like, he's like had his first night with his new wife. And then he's like telling her the morning after, like, oh yeah, trying to be like the prophet, trying to be like, and he's like really oblivious. But he's like so oblivious. Like it's like he's sincere, but also clueless at the same time.
No, but what do you think? Because I think that's bad writing. That's like really stupid. Which guy would actually freaking do that, man? You'd keep the secret, right?
Well, he like.
I mean, like, what you're gonna on the night after the honeymoon, you're going to drop this thing. Why are you just being brutal, man? You're gonna harm the woman. Like, come on.
Yeah, well, so there is extreme scenarios. For example, there's in season 1, people were really upset because they were like, he skipped Taraweeh to go have sex with a married woman.
Yeah. This guy's got a problem, man. This guy's got a dick problem.
But like, it's just like, but to me, I look like he's got 10 episodes. They're 20 minutes apart, right? Are dudes like having zina in Ramadan? Yes. Are dudes sleeping with married women? Yes. So he just combined it all. It's like they just combine it into one thing to be more efficient. So, but I mean, he's talking through it because he was like, I forgot how it came up in the night after. He was like, yeah, we're just thinking. He was like bringing up polygamy, kind of like trying to be subtle about it, but he has no tact. And then he's like, with who? And he's like, well, I thought you wanted me to be honest. And then the sheikh shows up. The sheikh is pissed because this is his daughter. And he was just like, what the hell is wrong? He was cussing him out. And then he was just like, but like, I thought this was like a struggle, because he just chalked it up like, oh, it's a struggle. But at the same time, like being oblivious to the fact that like you actually just hurt somebody.
Yeah, I mean, look, well, the thing that we can sort of connect with this is that like vice, everybody's got a vice, man. And if we're gonna keep beating each other over the head for having vices, we're not gonna we're just not gonna be at peace, man. You have to sort of understand how to deal with a vice and navigate it. Yeah. The exploration of vice is actually a spiritual thing. The exploration of your vice is a spiritual thing. Nobody wants to like frame it that way because we're taught to run away from the vice. It's like, no, why is this your vice? What do you like about it? Why are you fixated on it? What's in it there for you? If you go to the fullest extent and explore this vice till you fucking can't anymore, what's it gonna feel like? Are you gonna feel satisfied? Yeah. If you need to do it, go the full length, man. See what it is and come back. And what's that experience? Tell us, teach us about this vice. Teach us about the vice. You feel me? Like there's lessons in there. There's spirituality in there, but nobody wants to talk about that.
Well, it's scary because the idea is like going back to the transgender person I interviewed. What happened was that this person was struggling with same-sex attraction. Okay. This person was like, all right, I'm just going to deal with it. I know it's haram to have sodomy, to have like sex, and I'm just going to be a celibate the rest of my life. That was his conclusion. Then that's how he was dealing with it. All right. He's memorized the Quran. He's a dude. He's 16. And then he realized that the Muslim community is still not hasn't embraced him, and we need community. So therefore, he finds who's going to welcome him. Obviously, the LGBTQ community.
Right.
They're like, oh, they're going to show them love. So he's going to go to where that's natural. He goes there. Yeah. So he goes there, and then he finds out there's like these fringe opinions that allow sodomy. They have it's like a revisionist understanding of the scriptures. Yeah. Right? And then he takes that and he justifies it to himself. Because I asked the person on the show, I was like, listen, when you realize you had same-sex attraction and you were like freaking horny, you got hormones, why didn't you just start having sex with guys? Like, I bet nobody even told. I mean, like, I'm gonna get blasted for even suggesting that now in retrospect, but I'm like, listen, people are doing zina. Yeah, because people are doing zina, right? And they're repenting, and the religion's about Toba.
We need to talk about this shit. We need to not be afraid to talk about this stuff. You know what I mean?
So what happened? But what happened was this. Okay, so now he justified his homosexual behavior, so he started acting on it, right? And then now he's transgender. Why? Because there was a study on. I'm going to release this episode with you after I release that one, so it'll be like a recap. So there's this idea of he wanted to do a study in patriarchy, right? And so how he's going to do it, he's like, I'm going to live life as a woman for a few months, dressed like them, and then he liked it. And then now he's like pretty much, he identifies as a transgender female. So it's a she. So it's like, but I'm like, how far are you willing to let it go is the question. Because I think about it at the point, like you justified something. Now, maybe this is not what you're talking about, because now this person is changing the divine law, which is maybe a different thing than what you're talking about. Because you're saying like, understand it's a vice. Be real, it's a vice. Understand you're doing transgression. Connect and then be authentic to that. But like, understand it's still a transgression. Whereas this individual...
how else are you going to reconcile it with the religion?
Yeah, because now if you're because this person's idea of everything they're doing, they believe it to be completely halal within the framework of Islam. Right? Because it's this like, and I think this goes back to this idea of how do we deal with sin? And if we like justify, because I was like, well, listen, we have a religion the religion is designed around repentance. We as human beings are flawed creatures. So we're going to make mistakes.
See, this is where it gets really interesting. That's why this idea needs to explore, because this phenomenon of homosexuality and stuff and how it relates to Islam, like you get to sort of really like comprehend how complicated it is. Like, so what if, right? Okay, you're born with these sort of feelings. Maybe for you, your life is about the celibacy, and there's nothing. It's hard. But that is your internal struggle, right? And your internal struggle, in that way, I should give you a lot of respect. You know what I mean? Because you're a person who's going through doing something that most people aren't willing to do. Most people aren't willing to be celibate for as long as they, you know what I mean, can be, right? So, because a Muslim who has those feelings and still remains Muslim and does not commit like sodomy and things, that's a hard thing to do, man. I have to give you respect for that, right?
Right.
Because you're not committing the violation against the religion, despite your feelings. That's a courageous approach to do it. But that type of lifestyle would only be encouraged if we have conversations with people and still maintain them in our fold and embrace them.
Right.
You get me what I'm trying to say? They have nowhere to reach out to within our community. They're rejected.
Cool.
Whereas if they're welcomed by other people who sort of had dealt with this lifestyle problem, they'd sort of feel better.
All right, man. Irshad, appreciate you coming on. Like, let's wrap this up. How can people find out more about what you're doing, your music? Where can they find you?
Just follow me on Twitter, man, because that's where I'm chatty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And what is your Twitter handle?
It's at Irshad_INI.
Okay. And I'll put it in the show notes for sure. And then you have a SoundCloud account for people who want to check out your music, right?
Yeah, that's also soundcloud.com/Irshad_INI.
Cool. So Twitter and SoundCloud, I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming through.
Thank you,
for the listeners out there, viewers, follow me on YouTube. This will be up on YouTube. If you're on audio, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. And by the way, I have a website up now. So hopefully, if you want to get on my mailing list and talk about some stuff, I'm building a mailing list. So hopefully, I'm going to throw some extra stuff for those people on the mailing list that y'all won't get on a podcast, kind of some writings and stuff. Now, we got to do another show because I was going to ask you, I completely forgot to ask you about blogging and podcasting. So I'd love to have you on in the near future again to continue this conversation.
Sure. I'm down, man. Let me know.
I appreciate it. And then we will, leave us a 5-star review as always. And this is your host, Maheen, the podcaster, signing off for Sultans and Sneakers.
The jungle in my veins, the hunt's hardwired to the brain. Spear, throw, aim. Long range, subject is all things. Super highway packed in all lanes. Practice all manner of attack. The body shot, step back. Counter left hook, make you forget your name. Suggest ya, pay attention to the lecture. Let the know-how affect ya. Throw down an extra. Motives to hit the solar plex. Witness the litmus tester. Business is mic spitting, hype ripping. In and out, slip winning, no doubt. Grinding my 12-round bout. The higher power in my corner won't pull a towel out. That's right, we are packing punch. Get it in one take and that's lunch. It's all lean. My thoughts stream flowing from sources unseen. My Megatron plane can make the stars scream. 4 bars in from 16, I'm still mean. Was called the one by Neo and Billy Jean. I'm in the scene, rugged raw with the kill team. Surround sound large, looking sharp on your flat screen. Oh, flowing like it's Joseph. I'll produce around a tip, but they're hoaxing. Chosen, one from the billion. Mike's the trigger and I expose them. They get vetoed, I'm back sequel. D-shock to your sequel. My curious style, get curious eyes like peepholes. I'm back furious than rap studios, and yes, the beat's like damn. The man shites the sham. The beat's like damn. You know who I am with my man shites the sham. This where we're making that stand. Clips full of intellect in the tree standing. Bass banging, fucking with your mind. Rap set demise coming at your own time. Swings and ambush, your whole squad crumble. 1, 2, gorillas in the jungle.